guest is a nationally recognized web developer and online engagement practitioner with broad knowledge in urban planning and communication technologies. He's the founder and CEO of Urban Interactive Studio, LLC, and a publisher with Engaging Cities. He has a bachelor's and a master's degree from Technische Universität Berlin in urban and regional planning. So welcome, Chris Howell.
Perfect. Technical University.
I like the.
Scott's talk was actually a perfect segue in what I want to talk about, which is really sort of how do we do this online. And so when I talk and give presentations or do webinars, often I find that as a government 2.0 sort of community, when we talk about online engagement, we jump right to technology. What can we do with user voice, or all these other cool tools that we have? And it's kind of something that I see a lot coming in the questions that I get afterwards. Like, what are the best tools that we can use for online civic engagement? And I'm kind of hard pressed to give an answer. It's like, well, it really depends. And my favorite one is, how many participants can we expect when we use such and such software? It's like, well, it depends. Not just because you have a town hall meeting means that 500 people are going to show up. It's not like you build it and they will come. And when I think about these things, I really like this POST methodology that Charlene Lee and Josh Burnham outline in their book, The Groundswell. And in that four-step model, technology is actually the last thing to consider. And that doesn't mean it's not important. It obviously usually is. But there's a couple of other things to figure out beforehand. And so the first thing to think about is people. Who are we reaching? It's not just the general public. What are the segments in the public that we can kind of target in different ways? Where are they online? How are they using the web? Where can we find them? And then really making sure we have the right objectives. Not just saying, well, we want to engage citizens in this, but we might want to get some feedback on the zoning code update changes that we made, or we want to collect some ideas for a public budget, what to do different with the budget cuts that we have. And then the missing piece, and that's typically where I see things fail, is the strategy piece, the how do we engage citizens online that really should inform how we find technology and identify the right technologies to use, and that's what I want to focus on in the next couple of slides. And so just a couple of quick hits. Have a purpose. Make sure that what you're asking citizens to be engaged in leads to something. It's tied into a decision-making process and doesn't just end up somewhere on the shelves afterwards, because otherwise it's a big turnoff for citizens to get engaged if there's not a clear sense of what they're spending their time on. And oftentimes it's easier to actually condense things and focus maybe on a 3-week period to get a certain amount of feedback on something specific, rather than actually having this be a long, ongoing process where people starting to procrastinate and don't know what it leads to. When you do outreach, make sure, just like you would in face-to-face things, tie into connectors. That might be local bloggers, that might be people that have a Facebook page about local issues, that might be mommy blog or a mailing list or things like that. And make sure that what you're trying to get people engaged in is easy to share. The message, it's not only about having nice buttons like post this on Facebook, but it's about the message and about the materials that you offer them to share and to pass on the information, because really social media is a new word of mouth. And then make sure you think about presentation beforehand. This is actually a full-on comprehensive plan. And it might not make sense to have that all in text, but think about how to make this critical information that you need the citizens to digest beforehand. How do you make that easy to digest? And along those lines, think a minute about the user experience you want them to have. Text oftentimes is really hard to scan, so it's simple things like buttons and things like that. My favorite book on this topic actually is called Don't Make Me Think, and I think that really hits it home. When you do outreach, you obviously will communicate sort of where they should go to participate, and make sure that before you actually launch this, there's a sign-up page so they can say, okay, I'm interested in this, send me a notification by the time this goes live, which will help you tremendously to get this kicked off. Along those lines, make sure that there's actually content when they get there. Nobody wants to be the first to participate. If you come there and you don't have an expectation as a citizen what's expected from you, you'll likely turn around and not come back, or come back later and see if something else is going on. And then use ratings carefully. Oftentimes it's obvious what 5 stars means if we're talking about what are the best ideas, but if you're actually asking to identify the most feasible ideas or something like that, it becomes sometimes confusing what stars actually mean. And along those lines, a lot of the off-the-shelf civic engagement tools have issues with, they load with the highest rated ideas first, which is great in the beginning, but then something that is high up early on stays on top while you have 100 ideas and something new comes in at the bottom and nobody cares about all the new ideas towards the end. And make sure you facilitate this. And just one sort of thing that we experience, often it's better to not start deleting when something goes wrong, but to actually be bold and say, we don't tolerate this here. And by showing up and then facilitating actively, people will know that there's somebody watching out for it. And finally, make sure that you say thank you afterwards and send an email out saying, hey, this is what we accomplished. Your feedback informed this decision-making process. The council looked at it. And that will help shape local culture, which Scott mentioned earlier. And that's it. The last thing I want to mention, we have a blog or an online magazine called Engaging Cities where we share stories and have multiple contributors from all over the place. Check it out and contribute.